It's a coin you've probably held 100 times without thinking. You used it at a gas station, slid it into a toll booth, maybe fed it into an arcade machine. A 1998 D Washington quarter. 25 cents. Unremarkable, but what if that quarter, the one right there, was worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars, because hidden among those countless coins struck in 1998 are a few rare, misborn quarters that defy the odds. Quarters that carry stories of minting errors, mysterious metals, and strange origins. These are the coins that make collectors stop mid-sentence, eyes wide, breath held. It all started at the Denver Mint. In 1998, the U.S. Mint produced more than 821 million Washington quarters at the Denver facility, each one bearing the small d just to the right of Washington's ponytail. By all accounts, it was a routine year. No new design, no major commemorative event. Just another batch of quarters, made to keep America's vending machines, parking meters, and coin-operated laundromats humming, but as with every massive production process, sometimes the unexpected slips through. Imagine a coin struck on the wrong planchet, a blank intended not for a quarter, but for a foreign coin, or even a penny. Suddenly, the quarter's diameter is too small. Its weight is off. Its metal is wrong. The design doesn't fit perfectly, maybe the edges are incomplete. But it gets struck anyway. It slips through unnoticed. And decades later, someone finds it in a drawer, or stuck between the couch cushions, and everything changes. Point 1 known 1998 D Washington quarter was struck on a 5-cent planchet. That means it was printed onto the metal blank meant for a nickel, smaller, lighter, and made of a different alloy. When the dies pressed Washington's familiar face onto that wrong canvas, it created a coin that technically shouldn't exist. That single error coin sold for more than $700. And it wasn't alone. Another 1998 D quarter showed up missing its outer clad layer. Normally, a modern quarter is made of a copper core sandwiched between two layers of nickel. But if the outer layer is missing, due to a bonding failure during blank preparation, then the coin looks completely different. It appears bronze or reddish, almost like a large penny. If it's uncirculated and graded correctly, it can fetch upwards of $300 to $500. But perhaps the most captivating error tied to 1998 D quarters is the off-metal strike. In one bizarre case, a 1998 D quarter was discovered struck on a planchet intended for a Sacagawea dollar, although the Sacagawea program didn't officially start until 2000. The color and dimensions were wrong. The quarter design was compressed, distorted, and the surface had a golden hue from the dollar's manganese brass alloy. This kind of find is so rare, so unusual, it lives almost in legend, and when it's verified, it becomes a centerpiece in any collection. All of this makes the 1998 D Washington quarter a magnet for collectors, and yet, most people have no idea that they'll flip through their change absent-mindedly, not noticing the weight feels just a little off. They won't think twice about a quarter that looks copper-colored, assuming it's just dirty. They'll ignore a warped design, chalking it up to wear. But for the curious, for the sharp-eyed, that's where opportunity lives. Some of these coins are already certified, slabbed in clear cases with grade numbers and descriptions of the error. They've passed through the hands of experts. But many more are out there, undiscovered, tossed in drawers and boxes, forgotten at the bottom of coin jars. Collectors often say that finding a valuable modern error coin is like winning the lottery, except the ticket only costs 25 cents. But there's something deeper going on here. It's not just about money. It's about the thrill of discovery. The idea that something rare, something exceptional, might be hidden in the everyday. That's what makes coin collecting magical. To start, all you need is your pocket change. Pick out any 1998 D quarters. Look for the telltale signs. Is the color unusual, too dark, too red, too light? Is the edge incomplete, or oddly shaped? Does it seem thinner or thicker than normal? Hold it under a light. Use a magnifying glass. Feel the weight. Let your fingertips learn the subtle cues. There's no need for expensive equipment, just patience and curiosity. If you spot something odd, something that feels just wrong enough to be interesting, don't dismiss it. Take a picture. Weigh it with a digital scale if you can. Then compare it to known quarter specifications. 5.67 grams, 24.26 millimeters in diameter, 1.75 millimeters thick. Anything significantly different might be worth investigating, and when in doubt, submit it to a third-party grading service like PCGS or NGC. They can authenticate the error, grade the coin's condition, and seal it in a tamper-proof slab, often increasing the coin's value many times over. It's worth remembering, 1998 was the last full year before the launch of the 50-state quarters program. That massive change in design and public attention came in 1999, and it marked a new era of collecting. But 1998, it was a quiet year. A sleeper year. And that's precisely what makes it so fascinating now, because there's a kind of mystery to a coin from a transition period. A whisper of change in the air. And sometimes, amidst all that silence, mistakes happen, and those mistakes become treasures. Just imagine, in the palm of your hand, a coin that escaped the mint with the wrong DNA. A misfit. An accident. A fluke that now commands the attention of serious collectors, selling at auctions for sums far beyond what most people would believe. It's not a fantasy. It's already happening. So next time you get change back at the store, don't just shove it into your pocket. Look at it. Really look. Especially the quarters from 1998. Especially the ones marked with that little D from Denver, because one of them might be the key to a story nobody's told yet. One of them might be worth far more than 25 cents, and one of them might just be waiting for you to find it. So turn off the TV. Grab a lamp. Pull out that jar of old change and start flipping through. You never know. One small, overlooked quarter from 1998 might be the door to a world of history, mystery, and unexpected value. Sometimes, the most ordinary coins carry the most extraordinary secrets. It sounds like a fantasy, a treasure hunt hiding in plain sight. But in the world of coin collecting, or numismatics, the line between pocket change and prized possession is thinner than you think. In 2021, the U.S. Mint released a special quarter. It marked a return to the classic image of George Washington on the obverse, paired with a bold new reverse design, a depiction of General Washington commanding troops during his famous crossing of the Delaware River on December 25, 1776. The scene captures the tension, the risk, and the grit of that pivotal moment in American history. It's patriotic, historic, cinematic even, and it's also where things start to get very interesting. While the design is striking and the minting numbers were high, over 865 million of these quarters were struck at the Denver Mint alone. What collectors are after isn't just the design. They're hunting for the mistakes. Imagine a coin with a small bulge just above Washington's head, where his hat touches the rim of the coin. It looks odd, almost like a wart. That's no ordinary wear. It's a die chip, an error where a fragment of the die broke off during minting, leaving a raised lump on the coin. And it's not just any die chip. It's what collectors call the crown die chip. Now here's the kicker, because this error has become well known, especially in online collecting circles. Coins with prominent versions of this chip have sold for between $25 and $125 depending on condition. A tiny flaw, a blink and you miss it imperfection, suddenly becomes a value multiplier, and that's just the beginning. There's another error that's even more mysterious: improperly annealed planchets. During minting, blank coins, called planchets, are heated to soften them for striking. If that heating process is uneven, the surface of the coin can discolor. The result is a coin with rich shades of brown, red, even black, bleeding across its silver-gray face. These aren't just dirty coins. They're mint-made mistakes, errors born in the furnace. Collectors prize these errors for their rarity and the dramatic contrast they add to the coin. While not every discolored coin is valuable, certified improperly annealed planchet errors have fetched between $10 and $50 on average, sometimes more if the coloration is especially vivid or the coin is in excellent condition. But what really drives collectors wild are the coins that combine errors, die chips and annealing flaws, or off-center strikes, or missing clad layers. These combinations create one-of-a-kind coins. For example, a 2021 D quarter that was struck off-center, meaning the design was printed slightly askew, recently sold for over $200. Another with a missing outer clad layer, exposing the copper core, sold for even more. Let's not forget transitional errors. These are the kinds of anomalies that happen during shifts in production, when old materials accidentally get mixed with new designs. While not yet widely confirmed on 2021 quarters, collectors speculate about the existence of such anomalies given the transitional moment between coin programs in that period, the end of the America the Beautiful series and the start of the American Women Quarters program. That type of overlap, historically, has been fertile ground for mistakes, and it's mistakes that bring the magic, because the US Mint is a precision operation. Millions of coins are produced with robotic efficiency. But the scale of that process, day after day, year after year, means that occasionally, something slips through. A clogged die. A misaligned strike. A wrong planchet. And that's when something beautiful happens. Suddenly, your pocket change might be harboring a ghost. A misprint. A fluke of history. Let's talk about the people behind the obsession. In basements across America, in dusty attics and weekend flea markets, collectors run their fingers over coin rims, holding them up to the light, looking for the slightest aberration. It might look like someone just squinting at a quarter, but what they're really doing is reading a story. Every scratch, every error, every odd coloration tells them something about where that coin came from and what happened during its birth. Die chips. A story of pressure and wear. Off-center strikes. A tale of misalignment and timing. Missing clad layers. That's a chemical story, a metal story. Every rare coin is like a little artifact with its own origin myth. Some collectors are veterans, retirees who've been cataloging coins since childhood. Others are teenagers with TikToks, showing off their latest finds to an audience of millions. What unites them is curiosity. The sense that there's value hiding in the mundane. That history is still out there, waiting to be uncovered, even in something as small as a quarter, and you don't need fancy equipment to join them. Start with your own change jar. Look through your quarters. Separate out anything from 2021 with a D mint mark. Hold it under a strong light. Look closely at Washington's hat. Any bulges or raised areas? That could be a die chip. Flip the coin. Check for color changes, especially if the coin looks reddish or blackened in ways that don't wipe off easily. That could be an improperly annealed error. You can even use a magnet. Some error planchets involve unexpected metals. Others feel unusually light or heavy. If something seems off, it might be worth investigating further. And if you think you found something truly unique, reach out to a third-party grading service like PCGS or NGC. They'll evaluate, grade, and authenticate the coin, often increasing its value and legitimacy in the market. The 2021 D quarter is still young by coin collecting standards. But that's part of the thrill. Errors are still being discovered. Values are still rising. And the people who spotted them first? They're already ahead of the curve. One man's vending machine change is another's future auction star. One overlooked coin is another's $600 windfall. In 2023, a collector found a 2021 D quarter with multiple errors, die chips on both sides and severe discoloration. It was graded and authenticated, then sold privately for $450. That same year, another collector found a quarter with an extreme off-center strike. It had never been circulated, was preserved in pristine condition, and sold at auction for over $700. These aren't just flukes. They're part of a broader pattern, proof that modern coins, even recent ones, can hide remarkable surprises. So the next time you're at the grocery store or the gas station, and the cashier hands you change, take a second and really look at it. That quarter may be more than just 25 cents. It may be a little piece of minting history, a piece of metal with a secret. That's the wonder of numismatics. It's not about hoarding coins or obsessing over shiny things. It's about paying attention. It's about seeing what others miss. It's about the thrill of discovering that the most valuable things are sometimes hiding in plain sight. The 2021 D Washington crossing the Delaware quarter is more than a commemoration of a pivotal moment in history. It's a chance to make history yourself. Because one of those quarters could be out there right now, in a tip jar, a glove box, a couch cushion, waiting for someone like you to notice. So go check your pockets. Dig through your change. Look again at the coins you thought were ordinary. because sometimes, the greatest treasures don't glitter, sometimes, they jingle. You've probably handled one today. Dropped it into a parking meter. Used it for a gumball. Tossed it into a jar by the door, barely giving it a glance. A quarter. Just 25 cents, but what if I told you that one ordinary-looking quarter from 1990, yes, that same year of VHS tapes and Walkmans, could be worth not just a few cents, but a few $1,000s? This is the hidden world of numismatics, the study and collecting of coins, and today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of the most surprising, overlooked pieces of American currency, the US quarter dollar. Let's begin with a story. In 2018, at an auction that seemed like any other, a single Washington quarter, dated 1990, went under the hammer. At first glance, it looked like the kind of coin you'd fish out from beneath a car seat. But collectors knew better. Because this particular quarter wasn't just rare, it was struck on a 1941 Canadian planchet. That means that instead of being minted on the standard US copper-nickel blank, it was mistakenly stamped on a foreign coin's metal disc. The result? A wildly off-spec coin that shouldn't even exist. That coin sold for $3,600. Now ask yourself, how many 1990 quarters have you seen? How many passed through your hands unnoticed? You see, mistakes in minting don't just slip through the cracks. They slip into history. And for collectors, they turn everyday coins into treasures. The US Mint is a marvel of precision. Millions of coins pass through its machinery every day. Yet, despite the rigorous quality control, errors do happen. A wrong planchet. A double die. A misstrike. And when they do? That's when the ordinary becomes extraordinary. Let's break it down. The 1990 Washington quarter was minted in Philadelphia and Denver. No quarters were struck at the San Francisco Mint for circulation that year, but they did create special proof sets, targeted at collectors. These proof quarters are made with polished dies and blanks, giving them a mirror-like finish. They're beautiful, but they're not the rarest, the real gems. Those are the mistakes. The 1990 quarter struck on a 1941 Canadian planchet isn't just an error. It's a historical fluke. Imagine, a blank intended for a foreign coin, a Canadian 10-cent piece from the early days of World War II, somehow surviving nearly 50 years, lying dormant, forgotten, until it wound up in a modern US Mint press, and this wasn't just a simple mismatch of metals. The 1941 Canadian 10-cent planchet is 80% silver, much smaller in diameter, and lighter than a standard US quarter planchet. So when the Washington quarter design was struck onto this foreign blank, the result was a coin with incomplete edges, details missing, features distorted, an unmistakable outlier in the sea of uniform quarters, and collectors? They go wild for outliers. Coin collecting in the US has a long, rich history. For some, it's a hobby. For others, a passion. But for a few, it's a hunt, a treasure hunt, and in this hunt, knowledge is power. Let's take another 1990 quarter that made waves, the double die obverse. This error occurs when the coin die itself, used to strike the image onto the blank, is engraved twice, slightly off from the original position. The result is a striking, shadowed appearance on letters and numbers, especially noticeable on Liberty and In God We Trust. To the casual eye, it might just look like a blurry coin. But to a trained numismatist? That's the thrill of the find. These errors are so subtle that even seasoned collectors sometimes miss them. But once certified by professional grading companies like PCGS or NGC, they can sell for hundreds, even thousands, depending on condition. The story doesn't stop there. Every old coin collection, Grandpa's cigar box, the plastic tubes from the bank, the coffee can under the sink, could be hiding a sleeper coin. And among quarters, few years are as rich in mystery as 1990. Why? Because it marked a transitional period. The 1980s had seen numerous minting changes, particularly in planchet composition and die technology. By 1990, the US Mint had modernized much of its process, reducing the number of traditional hand-punched dies, which had been more prone to errors. But as with all transitions, the changeover wasn't perfect. That's how coins like the 1990 quarter struck on experimental planchets enter the scene. These were test blanks, used during experimentation with different metals and manufacturing methods. In theory, they should never have left the mint. But one or two escaped, and when they show up decades later, they spark bidding wars. Some of these mystery planchets are magnetic. Others test for unusual nickel content. All of them are puzzles, and puzzles mean value. In 2020, a 1990 quarter believed to be struck on an experimental nickel planchet sold for over $2,500 at auction. It wasn't flashy. It didn't shine. But what it had was story, and scarcity. Remember, value in coin collecting isn't always about beauty. It's about rarity. It's about error. And it's about being in the right place at the right time. Let's take it back to a more personal note. Imagine this: you're a kid in 1991, buying soda with quarters you fished from a glass jar in the kitchen. One of them is lighter, maybe even slightly off color. You don't think much of it. Into the vending machine it goes, but what if that quarter had been struck on a silver planchet by mistake? What if it was a 1990 quarter struck using a leftover blank from 1964? It's happened. These so-called transitional error coins are the holy grails of modern U.S. coin collecting. In 1965, the U.S. Mint switched from 90% silver quarters to copper-nickel-clad versions. But a few silver planchets stuck around in the machinery and were used accidentally in 1965, and even years later. That same principle applies to 1990. A planchet meant for an older or foreign coin, still in the mint system, might get pressed into a modern quarter. The result? A ghost from another era. We live in a world obsessed with digital everything. Digital money. Digital art. Digital lives. But coins, they're tactile. They're real. They carry history in their metal. The quarter in your hand might have traveled across the country. It might have been changed from a lunch counter in a dusty New Mexico town. It might have been carried in a soldier's pocket. Or it might be something else entirely, a rare error, waiting decades for you to notice. Every scratch tells a story. Every anomaly a chapter. So, how do you begin? Start simple. Pull out your change jar. Flip every quarter over. Focus on the year. 1990 is a good place to begin. Examine the edge. Is it perfectly round? Does it look thinner than usual? Hold it to the light. Does the image seem doubled? These are your clues. You don't need a microscope. A good magnifying glass, decent lighting, and a little patience is all it takes. Compare with reference images online. And when you think you've got something, anything unusual, get it verified, because the greatest finds always start with curiosity. This isn't just about coins. It's about rediscovery. It's about stories long forgotten, embedded in tiny, metal discs. It's about the thrill of the hunt, the satisfaction of spotting something the world has missed, and it's about realizing that sometimes, the most valuable things are right under our nose. So the next time you get change at the gas station, take a second glance at that quarter. If it's from 1990, congratulations, you've just entered the first chapter of an incredible numismatic mystery, because that coin in your hand, it might just be worth more than you ever imagined.